Night rolled across the silent city. With a cold that felt sharp enough to cut through steel, frost glittered along the sidewalks as though the world had been washed in silver. In the middle of that icy stillness, a young boy named Arvin walked quickly with his baby sister held tightly in his thin arms. Her breaths were small and uneven. Her tiny hands trembled. Arvin pressed her closer, trying to share what little warmth he had left. His worn jacket barely covered half of her body, yet he kept whispering soft words, hoping she could hear him and hold on. Arvin had been walking for hours. He searched for a shelter, or anyone who might help, but every door had been closed and every light had gone out. His legs shook from exhaustion. The cold bit into his skin. Still he pushed forward. He had promised his sister that he would keep her safe no matter what happened. The promise stayed in his mind like a glowing ember refusing to fade. Up ahead, a tall glass building stood glowing in white and gold light. It looked like a palace compared to the frozen streets. Arvin could see guards and workers near the entrance, but he had no idea who belonged inside. He only knew that his sister needed warmth soon or she would slip away. He gathered his courage and stepped toward the bright entrance, unsure of what would happen next. Inside the building, a man named Ryan Turner, the CEO of Continent Terrace, stood near the lobby window reviewing documents spread across a sleek table. His expression was sharp and distant. His employees knew him as a man of precision and iron discipline. Yet he paused when he noticed a small trembling shadow approaching the doors. Something about the fragile figure outside made him step away from his work. Arvin reached the door and lifted his sister higher. His voice cracked as he tried to speak to the guard who towered over him. The guard looked unsure, but Arvin did not back away. He swallowed his fear and whispered with all the strength he had left, "Sir, my baby sister is freezing." Ryan walked toward the doors, his footsteps calm yet powerful, like a storm gathering behind quiet clouds. People stepped aside as he approached, unsure why their CEO seemed suddenly focused on something outside the building. When the doors slid open, the cold air rushed inside and brushed against Ryan's face. His eyes narrowed at the sight of two shivering children, one barely standing and the other barely breathing. Arvin lifted his face toward the tall man. He had no idea who Ryan was. He only saw someone who looked strong enough to help, and he desperately needed that strength. The fear in his eyes mixed with hope, making his voice strain as he repeated his plea. "Please, sir, she is freezing. I do not know where else to go." Ryan studied the boy for a long moment. Something twisted deep in his chest, a strange flicker of emotion that he had not felt in years. His gaze then lowered to the tiny girl bundled in a thin blanket, her skin pale, her breath shallow. Without saying a word, he shrugged off his heavy coat and wrapped it around both children, sealing them inside its warmth. The gesture was so sudden that Arvin flinched in surprise. "Hold her tight," Ryan said in a deep, steady voice. "Come inside, both of you now." The guards stepped aside, watching with astonishment as their strict CEO bent slightly and lifted the girl into his arms with gentle care. Arvin followed him quickly, afraid that if he hesitated, this strange moment of kindness might vanish. Warm air embraced them as they stepped into the glowing lobby. Ryan moved swiftly, directing his staff with crisp instructions. "Bring blankets, hot water, and call medical support immediately." Workers rushed in all directions. Arvin stared wide-eyed, unsure if he was dreaming. Everything around him felt unreal. The lights, the warmth, the people moving with purpose. Yet the most astonishing thing of all was the man, carrying his sister with such fierce focus as though the little girl were someone precious to him. Ryan settled the baby girl onto a soft couch and checked her breathing with careful hands. His jaw tightened with concern. Memories he never allowed himself to revisit stirred under the surface like dark water shifting. "Stay awake, little one," he murmured, though no one had ever heard Ryan speak with such softness before. Warmth filled the lobby, slowly pushing away the cold that clung to Arvin's skin. Workers placed thick blankets around him. He sank into them, feeling heat seep into his bones. He had not felt real warmth in days, yet he could not relax. His eyes stayed fixed on his little sister, who lay on the couch surrounded by staff. Ryan remained beside her like a guardian, refusing to step away. One of the medical aides checked her temperature and shook her head in alarm. Ryan felt a wave of tension rise inside him. He watched the child's tiny chest struggle to rise. He turned his gaze toward Arvin, who stood shivering, not from the cold now, but from fear. "How long has she been like this?" Ryan asked. Arvin hesitated. His voice came out small. "Since morning, sir. She was warm at first, but then colder and colder. I did not know what to do. I tried to find help. I tried so hard. Ryan felt another twist in his chest, something sharp and aching. He recognized the emotion, but he did not allow it to show. Instead, he placed a steady hand on Arvin's shoulder and guided him closer. You did well bringing her here, he spoke firmly. She will be safe now. While staff worked around them, Arvin noticed how everyone responded to Ryan. They moved quickly, whenever he spoke as if his voice carved clear paths through confusion. Yet Arvin also sensed that beneath Ryan's composed exterior something turbulent stirred a depth that no one else seemed to see. The baby girl let out a weak cry. Ryan immediately leaned over her, adjusting the blanket and lifting her head slightly. His expression softened again in a way that stunned the workers nearby. They exchanged confused glances, whispering among themselves. Their CEO had never shown this kind of emotion for anyone. Arvin stepped closer, afraid to interrupt yet unable to stay quiet. Sir, will she be all right? Ryan looked at him. The answer he wanted was not simple, so Ryan gave the boy something better. She is stronger than she looks, and she is not alone anymore. Arvin felt his eyes burn with tears, but he blinked them away. He had to stay strong. For his sister. For himself. For the strange and powerful man who had suddenly become their protector. Night deepened outside the towering building, yet inside, warmth glowed like a sanctuary. A private room had been prepared for the children. Soft lights illuminated the space. The air was warm and filled with the quiet hum of a heater. Arvin sat beside his sister, holding her small hand. She was sleeping more peacefully now, her breathing steady though still fragile. Ryan stood near the window, looking thoughtful. He rarely allowed himself such quiet moments. His life was built on rigid order, controlled decisions, and a strict avoidance of anything that might pull him into emotional depths. Yet now he found himself unable to walk away from these two children. Arvin studied Ryan's tall silhouette. He sensed strength in the man, but also something lonely, something burdened. Slowly, Arvin rose from his seat, approached him, and stopped a few steps behind, unsure if he should speak. Thank you, Sir, Arvin said softly. I do not know why you helped us, but I will never forget it. Ryan did not turn right away. When he finally looked at Arvin, his eyes were unreadable. You are responsible. You protected your sister with everything you had. That deserves respect. Arvin lowered his gaze, embarrassed by praise he had never expected. His life had been filled with struggle and loss, with few people offering kindness. To hear those words from someone like Ryan felt unreal. Ryan stepped closer and placed a hand on the boy's head, a gesture that stunned both of them. It felt unfamiliar for Ryan, yet strangely right. Arvin stood still, afraid that moving might break the fragile moment. You will both stay here tonight, Ryan said. You will have food, warmth, and safety. Arvin's chest tightened with relief. He nodded hard, trying to hold back tears that threatened again. Ryan turned away before the boy could see something flicker in his own eyes. Outside the room, workers whispered about their CEO's sudden change of behavior. Some wondered what history connected him to these lost children. Others sensed that something deep and unspoken was unfolding, a story that none of them had seen coming. Inside the room, Arvin watched, Ryan quietly feeling a new strange hope rising in his heart. Morning sunlight spilled into the room, painting pale gold across the walls. Arvin opened his eyes slowly, blinking away the last haze of sleep. His sister lay beside him, her breathing steady and warm. Relief washed over him like a quiet wave. He touched her cheek gently, feeling life in her skin once more. A soft knock sounded on the door. Arvin sat up quickly. The door opened and Ryan stepped inside, carrying a tray of warm food prepared with surprising care. Ryan set the tray on the small table beside the bed and nodded toward the plates. Eat, Arvin. You need strength so you can take care of her. Arvin nodded and began eating, almost too quickly as though afraid the food might vanish. Ryan observed him closely, noting how thin he was, how carefully he watched his sister even while eating. Something protective stirred in Ryan's chest again, a feeling he had spent years burying under a life of cold precision. As Arvin ate, Ryan turned his attention to the baby girl. She lay curled inside soft blankets, her tiny hands peeking out. Ryan reached down and gently brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. She let out a tiny sigh and shifted closer to his hand, seeking warmth. Arvin watched them silently, amazed. It was as if his sister trusted this man instinctively, and in some strange way Arvin did too. Sir Arvin began carefully. Why did you help us? Ryan paused, his hand still resting gently beside the girl. His voice, when he finally answered, was low, because once someone did not help when they should have, Arvin did not fully understand, but he sensed the weight in the words. He did not ask more. Instead, he focused on eating while Ryan stood near them with a quiet presence that felt like a shield. Suddenly, the baby girl stirred again, opening her eyes slowly. She looked at Ryan with a soft, unfocused gaze, then lifted one tiny hand toward him. Ryan froze for a moment, then lifted her, carefully cradling her against his chest. She settled immediately, as though she had found a place she belonged. Arvin felt a warm heaviness spread through him, a feeling he had forgotten for a long time. Later that day, Ryan arranged for proper medical examination. Arvin and his sister were brought to a private clinic inside the building. The doctor, a calm and attentive woman, checked the girl thoroughly. Ryan stood close by, his posture straight, his eyes fixed on every detail. "The girl needs warmth, food, and rest," the doctor explained. "She is weak, but she will recover. She needs stability and care for some time." Arvin let out a breath he had been holding. Ryan gave a slow nod, though inside something unfamiliar pulled at him: responsibility, concern, attachment. He was not prepared for these emotions, yet he could not push them away. After the checkup, Ryan guided the children back to the room. Arvin walked beside him, feeling a strange mix of gratitude and uncertainty. He glanced up at Ryan several times, unsure if he should speak. Finally, he gathered his courage. "Sir, can we stay until my sister is stronger? I can work, I can clean or carry things. I will not cause trouble." Ryan stopped walking. He turned to look at Arvin, his sharp eyes softening in a way that surprised even himself. "You are not here to work, Arvin. You are here because you and your sister deserve safety." Arvin's throat tightened. It had been a long time since anyone had spoken to him that way. Ryan continued, his voice steady. "You will stay as long as needed. I will make arrangements." Arvin nodded, unable to speak. Ryan resumed walking, yet his thoughts churned beneath the surface. Something about these children called to a part of him. He had locked away for years apart, scarred by loss and silence. When they returned to the room, Ryan settled the baby girl down gently. She clung to his sleeve before letting go. Arvin watched the scene, feeling a warmth he could not name. "Sir," Arvin said softly, "she likes you." Ryan almost smiled, though the expression never fully formed. But his voice softened in a way that made Arvin feel safe. "And I will make sure she stays warm." As hours passed, the building brightened with afternoon light. Ryan returned to his office, but his thoughts drifted constantly toward the children. His staff noticed he was distracted, something unheard of for their disciplined CEO. He reviewed documents with mechanical efficiency, yet his mind wandered back to the fragile girl who had clung to his sleeve, and the determined boy who had braved freezing streets. Finally, Ryan stood abruptly. He left the office without a word, causing murmurs to ripple through the floor. He walked straight back to the children's room. Arvin was sitting on the carpet with his sister asleep in his lap. He looked up when Ryan entered, and his eyes lit with relief. "Sir, she slept for a long time. She is warm now." Ryan nodded and approached slowly. The girl stirred, then opened her eyes. When she saw Ryan, she reached out both hands in silent request. Ryan hesitated only a second before lifting her. She rested her head against his chest with a soft breath that felt strangely heavy with trust. Arvin watched, amazed by how naturally Ryan held her. It was as if Ryan had known her far longer than a single night. Something deep and old flickered in Ryan's chest again, memories of a past he had locked away long ago. "Sir," Arvin said quietly, "will you teach me how to be strong like you?" Ryan looked at him, surprised by the question. He sat down, holding the girl gently, and motioned for Arvin to sit beside him. "Strength is not about power, Arvin. It is about protecting what matters, even when you are afraid." Arvin considered this. The words felt like seeds planted deep in his heart. "But you are never afraid, right, sir?" Ryan looked down at the sleeping girl, his expression tightening with a hint of vulnerability. "Everyone is afraid, Arvin, even me." Arvin's eyes widened. His world was small and harsh, yet in that moment he felt a shift, as if someone had opened a door to a place where fear could exist without shame. The three of them sat together in a warm, quiet room, forming a fragile bond that neither Ryan nor Arvin fully understood yet. Evening shadows stretched long across the windows as the sky dimmed. The world outside grew colder, but inside, the room warmth wrapped around the children like a soft shield. Ryan remained seated, holding the baby girl, while Arvin leaned against the armchair beside him. A peaceful silence filled the space, though both knew this peace was temporary and incomplete. Arvin looked up at Ryan, his eyes curious. "Sir, what will happen next?" Ryan did not answer immediately. He stared at the sleeping girl in his arms, her tiny breaths warming the fabric of his suit. His mind was full of thoughts he did not yet know how to express. For now, Ryan said carefully, "You will both stay here. You will have warmth, food, and protection." Arvin nodded, though he sensed there was more behind those words, something Ryan was not ready to reveal. The baby girl shifted slightly, pressing closer to Ryan as if claiming him. Ryan held her more securely. Arvin watched the gentle motion, a question forming slowly in his heart, though he dared not speak it. Outside the hallway, workers whispered again. They wondered why their cold, disciplined CEO had suddenly become the guardian of two lost children. They sensed that something deep was unraveling in him, something long buried beginning to rise. Inside the room, Ryan finally spoke again, his voice low, filled with a depth Arvin had never heard before. "There are things I must face, things connected to you and your sister in ways you do not yet know." Arvin frowned, puzzled, but before he could ask more, the baby girl let out a small sound, and Ryan shifted his attention toward her with unwavering focus. Arvin watched him quietly, feeling the weight of unspoken secrets lingering in the room unanswered, yet powerful, shaping the path ahead. And so the night settled around them, warm and calm, yet full of mystery as the bond between the three grew stronger. With every quiet breath and every silent promise,